G'day, I'm Peter Wheeler, Executive Officer of New Zealand Bomber Command. We're here at MOTAT in Auckland this afternoon. We've just finished our annual service, which was really quite a splendid affair. The last time we were here was when they had the formal handover of medals from Les Munro to Lord Ashcroft and then to the museum for protection. And the display has been mounted here behind us as the first part of a bigger exhibition remembering 617 Squadron, the New Zealanders who served in it, and also the part they played in the raid itself. So across here, there's some pictures taken from the raid. A lot of the squadron were shot down. In fact, Les Munro and one other weren't able to drop their bombs. They were hit prior to getting to the target. They came back. The other New Zealander, Len Chambers, he was a rear gunner, X-75 Squadron. He flew with Mick Martin's crew. And Mickey Martin was accredited with actually rupturing the dams. So we have some great still shots here, the dam being ruptured, and below here is Les Munro being presented to the King. And further across is a rather nice painting which has been produced showing Les Munro's Lancaster just crossing the Dutch coast. You can see how low he is. He was about 60 feet, and unfortunately a random shot knocked out all of their wireless and RT systems, so they couldn't communicate within the aircraft or to anyone else, and that was unfortunately the end of Les's mission. Since then, at MOTAT, we've continued to develop displays, and the most recent has been the Thomas Frederick Duck episode. The crew of Thomas Frederick Duck, in fact, were predated by the crew of Duck, 75 Squadron, and this was a bunch of really hard case aircrew. All Kiwis, gunners, wireless ops, pilots, and while they're both lucky, they're an incredibly professional crew in that they flew and survived 30 operations on Wellingtons, flying to all the major targets such as Berlin, Nuremberg, Hanover, Hamburg, and of course Happy Valley, the Ruhr. Having done their full tour, they then went the various ways to become instructors, but their skipper, Jack Wright, wanted to do another tour, and he said, "Righto lads, let's get back together." And so they did. And so they then were very experienced, so they became pathfinders in 156 Squadron, and part of their duties was regular, often trips over Germany as a key crew. So you can see down here the photograph of the crew, and there's a couple of ground crew in there, but all very experienced. One of them is infamous or famous, was Ken Crankshaw, and unfortunately he's not in this photo because he was wounded and was on medical relief at the end of their tour when this photo was taken, and that's a Canadian gunner. Now Ken Crankshaw had a interesting habit in that he rang a bell every time they were over a target, and this bell was the proceeds of an accident when they were staying at a hall, and they had the servants' bells on the walls, and he thought he'd give this thing a good walloping Kiwi ring, which he did, to see what happened, and it fell off in his hand. So being a good Kiwi, he pocketed the proceeds and left. So this bell, it exists today. It was engraved with the crew's name, and so whenever they were over target, they rang the bell, and he became Ring the Bell Crankshaw. And he's famous in the Air Force and through our Bomber Command Association as a really hard case character. Post-war, they stayed very good friends. Reynolds disappeared, but the others were very, very close. And in fact, Nick Carter was the last to leave us, which is just 18 months ago. They had an amazing group of friends. So there's our latest displays. We're now looking at the next step in enlivening up what you can see here.
So can you tell us about the two artworks?
The duck emblem actually came out of a London Illustrated magazine we picked. It was a semi-Disney character, and it was traced from the magazine onto plain paper by Alf Drew, and then, which is an appropriate name, and then Alf passed it to Nick, who drew this outline, and then that became the original duck. And it was painted in standard RAF coloured paint on the nose of the Wellington. Unfortunately, the Wellington came to a grim end in that it was parked at the airfield, and the crew weren't aboard, and a Boston 2-engine bomber landed and swung off the airfield and collected their Wellington and set it ablaze. So the original artwork was gone. When they formed their second, when they went to 156 Squadron, they were issued with an aircraft called GTG, T for Tommy rather than D for Duck. And so they still wanted to keep the duck idea going, and so Thomas, T for Thomas. Frederick came from Alf Drew's previous aircraft, which was also a very lucky aircraft, F for Freddy. So we came from Duck and Thomas and Freddy to Thomas Frederick Duck. Now there were two of these done, both by a guy called Morn, an LAC Morn, in the RAF, and he painted two. One was glued to the aircraft, to the Lancaster, and it now resides at Wigram Museum. The second was presented to Jack at the end of their second tour, which they survived, and it was kept rolled up by his family for 4 decades. It was offered to us, the Bomber Command Association, as a display item, which we gladly took, and we've had it re-restored and put into a frame. So hopefully it'll be there to encourage people for a long time. The second person who flew on the Dams Road, of course, was Lenny Chambers from the West Coast. And he was one of half a dozen really good airmen from the West Coast. In fact, Ken Crankshaw, ring the bell Ken, he was from there as well. This is a photograph of the Dam Busters cruise the morning after the raid. It was taken by the court photographer and is exceptionally good quality. It can blow up the size of a wall. And that Lenny is just above the CO, Guy Gibson, who's sitting there, and that's Lenny there. We've also been presented with Len's medals by his family to go on display, and as you can see, they're pretty well worn. They're held in place with good old duct tape, but they were his medals, and you can see needed by the DFC. That was awarded by the King in London and pinned to his uniform. This is a photograph of Les Munro on the right, the Governor General, and Len Chambers on the left at the premiere of the Dam Busters movie in Wellington in 1955. Interestingly enough, we've got a member in our association who flew the Lancasters for the movie in the Dam Busters, so it's a full circle for us. That's a photograph of, it's a well-known photograph and often misrepresented, but that's Les Munro and Len Chambers the morning after the raid at Scampton.
And so all of this is going to become a future exhibit?
Yes, we have got, in 617 Squadron there actually were a dozen New Zealanders who served, some for long periods of time. We're still very fortunate in that we've got Arthur Joplin, who flew on the Tirpitz raid, and in most of the photographs of the Tirpitz raids, the movies, you can actually see Arthur's bomb exploding. Arthur went on a number of other dangerous raids. Krems Barrage was one, and the Dortmund Ems Canal was another. And Arthur is still a very fit, active person. So I don't think that all of 617 have gone, but we have 12 ex-members. And this case is going to be rearranged, so we look at both the Dams raid and the later contribution of New Zealanders in that raid. If you look to your right, you can see under the Lancaster a Grand Slam bomb, the 22,000 pounder. And one of our members, now past, Frank Cardwell, personally dropped 3 of these in Germany in 1945. So between Les and Frank and Arthur, Len, we have quite a connection to 617 Squadron. And of course we're so fortunate we now have 2 complete sets of medals from the guys who served.